People who watch security cameras for a living, what creepy things have you tried to forget? Worked as a harbor master a while ago. Had to check the marina's cameras after a boat was abandoned at our docks. I was looking for the owner. I looked on the tape from the boat's first night in the marina. The man who had sailed the boat in was standing on the end of his boat for 2 hours, barely moving. Then at 1:30 AM he just walked off the back and dropped into the water. He never came back up. Never found his body. Freaky. Can you tell me a little bit about what qualifications are required to be a harbor master? Well, first you need a bachelor's in boats. That takes about 4 to 8 years. If it takes 8 years, you must like boats a lot. 4 years for the boats, another 4 for the hose. I used to do it support for a charity that supplied housing and support for homeless people. A large proportion also had mental health issues, so there were a fair amount of interesting events that happened. Being in it, I avoided experiencing most of it firsthand, though I was threatened with being stabbed on about my 3rd day. Anyway, I come in one Monday, and there's an email labeled urgent, saying there was an incident at the stairwell of one of the properties on Sunday night, and could I pull the relevant CCTV footage and put it on a DVD. I had to do this fairly frequently. I skip through the footage, find the incident, usually a fight or blatant drug dealing, and burn it to DVD for the police. The email never mentioned what the incident was, so I skip through the footage and watch as a clearly very agitated man ties a rope around a stair rail at the top of the stairs. Then his neck looks over the rail and then just casually tips forward over it. The rope flipped him round and he dangled there twitching for far too long before he just stopped. So yeah, that was a fun Monday. They really should have warned you. That's a hell of a thing to just expect someone to watch and record. Mostly lots of sex. I've had to turn on the microphone and tell them to stop it, or they'll be thrown out of the college gym. I'd have just started narrating in the voice of David Attenborough, and here we observe the mating habits of young Homo sapiens in their natural habitats. Sadly, the young male is underendowed. Hey, fuck you, dude. The young male appears agitated. This could be a result of his underendowment. The female appears to be less in heat, possibly due to the male being extremely underendowed. I used to work loss prevention for a big box store. We had a lady get arrested for public indecency, and I was asked to investigate. I had to follow her backwards from the point of arrest, and it was a trip to say the least. She arrived at the store swerving and nearly hitting several cars. She entered the store with 2 young children, both of whom are mentally handicapped. That lady literally dragged those kids around the store, slapping them and tugging at their ears/collars if they didn't obey. At some point she just abandons them in the clothing section, walks through the back doors to the break area, and I'm assuming she thought it was the bathroom, because she proceeds to pull down her pants and shits all over the fire exit door. She pulls her pants up, without wiping mind you, and goes back to the floor like nothing happened. Someone saw what she did and followed her. Luckily there's an officer in the store at the time and quickly approaches her when the associate tells him what she did. Needless to say, she was definitely high and or drunk and was arrested. The scary part is, she did not mention those kids not one time. It wasn't until I reviewed the tape that I saw they were just still waiting by the shopping cart, completely oblivious and afraid to move. Child services was later called, and I still think about those kids often. Breaks my heart to think about the bullshit those kids must still be going through. Not for a living, but I have had security cameras for the last 10 years at my house. A guy was shot 7 times in front of my house, but I only caught the audio. I've had random people walk around the front of the house looking for anything to steal, and actually stealing shit several times. Countless instances where people come up to break into my car until they realize the motion light kicks on, and we have cameras. Most of the time people breaking into cars have a large tool bag over their shoulder. It's so amazing about the number of times people come up to my house doing weird shit. If I didn't have the cameras I wouldn't know about hardly any of this shit. One pro tip for anyone installing cameras: make sure you put lots of signs saying that there is video surveillance, otherwise you just end up with a lot of footage of people stealing stuff. A guy was shot 7 times in front of my house, but I only caught the audio. Geez, you'd think he'd stop walking by your house after, like, the 3rd time. Wasn't a security officer, but I worked at a 24/7 gas station for a while. One night my coworker accidentally killed himself while at work, and I made the mistake of watching the footage. He went to the back of the store with a bag of drugs, probably cocaine, snorted it and started acting funny for about 10 minutes. He then sits in the back office and gets fidgety/thrashing around until finally he just goes limp in the chair. He had died of a heart attack and sat there for 5 hours before anybody came in, thought the absence of an employee was strange, and called the cops. It was really weird seeing people come in and act all pissy for the lack of service. They'd just leave thinking someone was lazy. But nah, dude was dead. Username checks out. Saw a chicken walk up the side of a tree at 2 AM. This one's too much even for Livbeak. Get the cluck out of here. Was watching CCTV footage of a parking deck, and on the 9th level there's this guy sitting in the middle of the deck, banging his head on one of the pillars. All of a sudden the guy just stops and runs to the edge. Without stopping or jumping, he flings himself over the edge. I immediately called dispatch and told them what had happened. Few days later I was offered counseling for those events. I'm glad you were. A lad I grew up with worked security at a large shopping mall. Security get radioed to a jumper. He is first on scene. Blood everywhere. Body in a complete state. After emergency services left the scene, they washed down the bus access road, and he was ordered back to work. He wasn't offered counseling or a day off to gather his thoughts. I hope you're doing better now. I work in a retail store, and for a while I worked security here. Watching the security cameras wasn't technically my job, but we were consistently short-handed in that department and the manager was grooming me for promotion, so I got to fill in and watch the cameras occasionally. One day when we were reviewing footage from overnights, we saw this teenager calmly set down his shopping basket, take off his hat and glasses, and just charge at a wall. Hit it head on. He did this 2 more times. When he was done, his face was a bloody mess, and he put his hat and glasses back on and just left. Weirded me right the hell out. Wrong platform I bet. Was a security coordinator for a large electric company, and had access to like 80+ facilities CCTV infrastructures. Was doing maintenance check on some random train station at like 3 AM. Panned a camera as far to the right as possible to check that it was functioning, and this dude was on all fours eating a deer in the middle of the tracks. Watched him for like 10 minutes and went to get the other guy on shift. When I came back, the dude was gone. Rewound it, and the dude stopped munching on the carcass, wiped the gore off his face, and walked into the woods like he didn't have a care in the world.